Hello, I'm Matt Dolney, and this is Viper Bites, and this is our team-by-team preview series. If you like what you see, make sure to hit that like button and make sure you are subscribed. Now let's get into the football, and let's talk about the Arizona Cardinals. I hate to say to you right now, Cardinals fans, this is not going to be a very flattering preview. Now, the Cardinals last season, they were 4-13, scoring 340 points, giving up 449. That was a negative 109 differential there. Now their passing offense, it ranked 18th in the league, posting 213 yards per contest, while their run offense was 22nd in the league, averaging 110.2 yards per game. Their passing defense, 24th in the league, giving up 230.3 yards, while the run defense was 14th, allowing 118.6 yards per game. When we look back at 2022, there's a very good reason why this Arizona Cardinals team had the third overall pick in the 2022 draft prior to dealing that pick away. In fact, the Cardinals dropped their final 7 contests, which dropped their record to 4-13 and cost coach Kliff Kingsbury his job. Out goes Kingsbury. In comes former Eagles defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon to oversee the operation in the desert. The Cardinals, they weren't particularly good on the defensive side of the ball, as they were allowing the second most points per game, surrendering 26.4 per contest. Only the Chicago Bears allowed more points. Now, when we look at the camps going on here in Arizona, every position is basically up for grabs. I will be closely watching this quarterback situation there, the battle between Colt McCoy and Clayton Tooney. In 4 games of action, McCoy averaged just 195 yards per game, and over his 12-year career, he has never played more than 13 contests or averaged more than 6.5 yards per completion, with a 62.6% completion percentage. Tooney, the rookie out of Houston, he passed for more than 7,500 yards and 70 touchdowns over his final 2 seasons, while connecting on over 67% of his passes, averaging 8 yards per attempt. When you take a look at these 2 quarterbacks, it seems that Colt McCoy is that typical journeyman type quarterback there. Meanwhile, is Clayton Tooney a gunslinger, or is he just a system quarterback that was lucky enough to play in a good system in Houston? Now, looking at this Cardinals draft, they traded back from the 3rd pick back to the 6th pick with the Houston Texans. That means they also got the Houston Texans' first overall pick next season, and that could come into huge play when we're talking about the draft in a year's time. Now, with that 6th selection, they took offensive tackle Paris Johnson, who they probably would have been considering with the 3rd overall pick. Meanwhile, in the 2nd round, pick number 41, edge defender B.J. Ojulari. He is now a Cardinal. In the 3rd round, pick number 72, they went with cornerback Garrett Williams, and then later on in pick number 91, Michael Wilson, the wide receiver out of Stanford, who, if you recall, had a pretty good Senior Bowl. Now, 4th round, guard John Gaines II. 5th round pick 139 was Clayton Tooney. And in the 5th round pick 168, Owen Papoa, the linebacker out of Auburn. Now, when we look at these offseason moves that this Cardinals team made, they added linebacker Kazir White. They also added defensive tackle Kevin Strong, wide receiver Zach Pascal, and offensive tackle Dennis Daly. Now, the losses, we don't know where DeAndre Hopkins is going yet, but he was let go from this Cardinals team. Defensive tackle J.J. Watt, he's now retired. Cornerback Byron Murphy, he signed elsewhere. Defensive tackle Zach Allen, he's now in Denver. Edge defenders Marcus Golden, wide receiver Chosen Anderson, defensive tackle Tristan Hill, center Rodney Hudson, guard Cody Ford. They are now elsewhere. Now, the best move that this Cardinals team made, it came at the draft, and that was trading back and acquiring more assets, including what could be a top 3 pick next season, which is going to go a long way in determining how this Cardinals team is building moving forward. Paris going to be a good offensive lineman, something the Cardinals were in desperate need of adding. Him, along with future draft capital, was a big win for this team on draft day. Now, the worst move that this Cardinals team made this offseason was having to let go of DeAndre Hopkins for nothing, which was also an omission that this team wasn't in any position to compete here in 2023. We know that Kyler Murray is going to miss time, which also hurts his Cardinals' chances of picking up some victories. The Cardinals, they did get a taste of what life would be like without DeAndre Hopkins, as he had to serve a 7-game suspension early on last season. Guys like Marquise Brown, Rondell Moore, Greg Dortch, they all had to step up, the next man type scenario. And they did have varying degrees of success, but that success came with Kyler Murray under center early on in the year. Now, when we look at what's going to have to happen for this Cardinals team here in 2023, I'm not very optimistic about this Cardinals outlook. They have the inside track right now, in my opinion, at the first overall pick come April. And I'm not talking about the pick that they acquired from the Houston Texans. Good news, that pick that they did acquire from the Texans is likely going to be a top 3 or top 5 pick, which means the future is bright in Arizona. When you look at the additions versus subtractions via free agency and the injury to Murray, it's hard to predict this Cardinals team even winning a game at all this season. Heck, Murray's injury may linger a little bit longer than expected. Who knows? Right now, I'm going to give the Cardinals the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to give them at least one victory. I just can't give them anything more than one victory at this point. Why? Because they are one of the few teams that has found a way to slow down Cooper Kupp. So if there's a team in the last 5 years that's been able to slow down Cooper Kupp, it has been this Arizona Cardinals team. So maybe we'll play this game. They find a way to win one game against the Los Angeles Rams. Sorry, Rams fans. The win has to come somewhere. Now that's enough talk about football. Let's talk about fantasy football here. And let's talk about the top 5 fantasy options for the Arizona Cardinals. At number 1, it's Marquise Hollywood Brown. I'm not sure if Kyler Murray is even going to return. So Brown's ceiling is somewhat capped at this point. But when Hopkins wasn't on the field, Brown would see a 29% target share, and it was averaging 7.1 receptions, 10.6 targets, and producing 18.25 fantasy points per game during that Hopkins suspension. At number 2, James Conner. Less Kyler Murray means more James Conner. When Murray missed time, Conner would go on to average 22.5 fantasy points per contest. Yes, you heard that right. 22.5. Right now, Conner is being drafted as the RB26 after producing as the RB4 over the final 8 games of the 2022 season. At number 3, Trey McBride. Like Murray, I'm not sure if Ertz is even going to return this season, yet somehow Ertz is still being drafted ahead of Trey McBride. How is that even possible? Now, don't be shocked when McBride outproduces rookies like Dalton Kincaid, Sam Laporta, and Michael Mayer. Now, number 4, Rondale Moore. Like Brown, Moore saw a significant target share increase there at 24% with Hopkins out of the lineup in 15 career starts. Moore has seen at least 8 targets in 7 of those games and has averaged 17.3 fantasy points per game. And number 5, we'll put down Kyler Murray there just because it makes the whole graphic here I have look a little bit better. It'll be interesting to see how much time Murray misses after tearing his ACL last December. Now remember, it's not when you tear your ACL, it's when you have that surgery. Murray averaged 18.9 fantasy points per game, which ranked 7th amongst quarterbacks. Murray's going to make fantasy magic whenever he steps on the field. Even if he's only averaging 6.1 yards per target, he's going to be a top fantasy option when he's healthy because of what he's able to do with his legs. Now, looking at the one player that you have to roster on your team from this Arizona Cardinals team, I'm going to say James Conner is probably the only one player that's going to benefit with Murray out of the lineup. When I said that injury could linger, the Cardinals and Murray may make a business decision to help ensure that the number 1 overall selection is coming to the desert here in 2024. You also have to take a look at the depth behind Conner here, and there is none. I mean, we're talking about Keontae Ingram here, and that is the best back behind Conner. I mean, there is Corey Clement and Tyson Williams if you want to include them too. Conner averaged 4.3 yards per carry, and he churned out 782 rushing yards on just 183 attempts. He also caught 46 passes, which was the second most of his career. Now, volume is key here, especially if you're doing like the Scott Fishbowl here. Conner could be one of those league winners. Now, no competition, and since coming to Arizona, Conner has accounted for 55% of all the running back touches. There were 400 touches available from last season. A new offensive coordinator there, Drew Petzing. He's coming from Cleveland, where they had 502 touches in their backfield in 2021. Now, the biggest bust, I'm going to go with Marquise Brown simply because of this quarterback situation. If it were Kyler Murray that was under center, I would be all over Marquise Brown, especially at his ADP and his history of production. Marquise Brown was on pace for 1,400 yards and 9 touchdowns before he got hurt last season. And if you believe that Murray will return and play meaningful snaps, then Brown could be a late season league winner. If you have any doubts, then it's best to allow someone else to take that risk when it comes to Hollywood Brown. Now, the best fantasy value on this Cardinals team, know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, and know when to run. If you are willing to gamble, then Kyler Murray at QB 21 could be of interest. I fear that the Cardinals could shut him down early, even if he is healthy. But if they don't, and you grab him as your second quarterback, say behind a guy like Kirk Cousins or Daniel Jones, then you could have a QB1 for the back half of the season. In 4 seasons, on a points per game basis, Murray has been the QB11, QB3, QB4, and last season, that QB7. Now, the fantasy sleeper for this Cardinals team, so many tiny receivers. I mean, little guys out there. We're talking about Brown. We're talking about Dortch. We're talking about Rondale Moore, all under 5'10". Even Zach Ertz is still recovering from his injury that he suffered late in the 2022 season. And I bet you're thinking that I'm going to go with Trey McBride here, but here's my thought. McBride's not the guy for me here. The sleeper pick for this Cardinals team is Michael Wilson, the rookie out of Stanford who is crushing it at the Senior Bowl and crushing it at the Combine. Wilson is a legitimate big target at 6'2", 210 pounds, and is probably one of the top 5 route runners from this year's draft class. Wilson is something that this offense simply doesn't have, so he will see the field plenty. Arizona wants him on the field so bad they're even giving him reps as a punt returner right now. Negative game scripts are going to force this Cardinals team to pass a lot, which can only help Wilson's cause. They have drafted well. They've drafted themselves some playmakers the last few seasons, and they're hopefully going to be building around these guys. This season is a full-out rebuild for this Cardinals team, and they're probably still a couple seasons away from even being able to make a playoff push. But hey, if you want to look for that silver lining, think of it this way. The Cardinals, they could have that first overall pick. Maybe they go Caleb Williams. Maybe they keep Kyler Murray. Either way, that first overall pick is going to have value. They may also have that second overall pick, who could be Marvin Harrison Jr., which would be a great way to pair up with Caleb Williams or Kyler Murray moving forward.